Welcome to the Success Resequencing Project. I'm Debbie Ponticus.
And I'm Jenn Newman.
Join us as we challenge the traditional definitions of success so you can build a fulfilling path of your own.
Get ready for inspired, candid conversations while gaining tools, inspiration, and confidence to create your own authentic success story.
As entrepreneurs or high achievers, it's not uncommon to confuse success with strong financial metrics. We get so caught up in the quest for quantitative growth and what the bottom line looks like that we sometimes lose track of the qualitative reasons businesses succeed, such as quality products, a good reputation, and the unique value we bring to our clients. On today's episode, Carlyn Bushman, the owner of Carlyn Bushman Consulting, talks about her personal story of growth and how by shifting from a mindset of desperation to abundance, she turned her success story around and found that growth should be measured by fulfillment, not a balance sheet. Well, good morning, everyone. Hello, Carlyn. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you. How are you?
Doing super wonderful.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
Thank
Likewise.
you.
Of course.
Thank you for being here. And so let me jump in and just give our audience a little bit of background for you. And then feel free to correct me if I get any of this wrong. But a mom, a wife,
Check.
lifelong learner, and a former corporate executive, and now a small business owner. And your path, it started in sports medicine. Then you shifted to be director of operations for Stryker Corporation, and you did that for 10 years. Then you decided, okay, I want to change a little bit. So you started, not a little bit, a lot of it. So you started your own medical consulting business. You did that for about 4 years. Then decided really wanted to pivot off of that and took a break for about 3.5 years. So we'll talk about that today. Then started your current business, your consulting business, and a handbag company, mind you. So that's
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
I mean, hello. Yeah. And currently with your business and your consulting business, you specialize in helping women-owned small to medium-sized businesses thrive and provide guidance in marketing, management, finance, and technology, really wanting to create that sustainable growth strategy for your clients. And what I love is what you say is you work in the businesses for your clients so your clients can work on the businesses.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming today.
That is amazing.
So one of the things that we are excited to talk to you about today, and we had a conversation with you before, just to kind of talk through kind of your story and your journey, is you are a self-admitted spreadsheet enthusiast, right? You love the numbers.
Love language.
It's your love language.
Truly
right?
love language.
And
kind of creepy, but yes.
Oh,
No, I get it. We really understand.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jen is probably in that as well.
Yes. It's a soothing, it's like a whoopee.
Yeah. I love that. Instead of Excel,
is.
it should be called Whoopee.
It should be called whoopee. Mm-hmm.
So what we liked about that and wanted to really dig in with you is I think when you started your businesses and probably what helped get you to where you are today and how you can help your clients is your mindset took you to focus on the numbers and growth and success. And I think that can get you to where you're like, okay, you get distracted a little bit and you get too focused on the numbers when you're trying to grow a business. And that can come at a cost. So talk to us. And I know that's a lot thrown at you, but I know you've been very successful in your business and you've had a lot of growth in your business. But I think you were telling us sometimes when you focus on the wrong things, you can lose sight of what true growth is in a business.
Mm-hmm.
That is so valuable to share. And it's so true. And learning by mistake is obviously something that happened, right? So when I first started my business, just to dive right in, when I first started my business, I was incredibly focused on the numbers. I came from corporate. It was a publicly traded company. That was part of the game. Like every month you rolled up your numbers and you had to report up what those numbers look like. A lot of pressure there, a lot of long hours, but so many learning opportunities. Taking that methodology and applying it to a small business, I thought, well, of course, that's exactly what I'm going to do. It's all about the numbers. Always saying, if you don't know your numbers, you don't have a business, right? How many times have we heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's drilled in day after day. And when you're looking at your numbers, you're thinking, are you either behind, meeting, or exceeding?
Yes.
Only 3 places to be,
Right.
typically. And coming from that corporate environment, the goal was to always be exceeding. That's how you climb the corporate ladder.
Yep.
And I applied that to my first consulting business. And at that point, I was really focused on those numbers to a fault.
So tell us
Speak
about
to
that.
the fault. Yeah. Speak to what that means.
Okay, I don't want to start crying.
You can.
But it was a challenge because I sacrificed not only my personal well-being, but also my own integrity in the space and serving my clients. All of that I didn't intend to do that. I didn't set out to have that as one of my values, right? That was not something you show up and do. But I would say yes to every client for all the reasons, because the numbers are what drove the business. And that's what I had ingrained in me day over day, month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year with my corporate background. So I apply that to small business. Not always a great idea.
So tell us about, let's take a step back for a second. So you were in corporate America.
Yeah.
Jen and I, same thing. And then decided, okay, this isn't for me anymore. And you wanted to pivot. And with the Success Resequencing Project, what we really want to share with our audience is that everyone's path is different and that success is going to look different for everyone. And a lot of the times that includes taking pivots, and that includes having the courage to realize it's time for something else. And you've had, from what we know, 2 big pivots, you know, when you left corporate to start the medical consulting business.
Correct.
Then, okay, must have been something that said, okay, I got to stop. And this is probably what you were talking about, but you took a 3.5-year break before you decided to start your current business. Talk to us about some of those pivots and some of the challenges or some of the mindset that you had when you decided it was time to leave corporate and start your own business. But then when you decided, okay, maybe the medical consulting wasn't what was your calling, and now kind of where you are today.
Well, and there's also an emotional impact that we can uncover with that as well. So
for sure.
Corporate was very interesting because I left corporate to start my own consulting business because of the demands of corporate. Some of the things that I just described regarding the financials and the responsibilities in that space, but also something like the travel schedule and all the things that corporate. And I'm not trying to say corporate is bad. It provided an incredible amount of education and exposure and credibility, right? To do what I do today. On that note, when you think about entrepreneurship, which was not a word back in the day, like that was not really what you called it.
No.
I'm not even sure what you called it.
Right.
I think actually it had a negative connotation. It was almost like entrepreneurship was something that flighty people did.
Like,
it
that's
was
cute.
Like, it's cute. Exactly. It had a very strange connotation where nowadays it's lauded, right? But it has evolved over time. Back then, no.
Yeah. And I remember feeling that word was very daunting.
And risky.
Like the people who were entrepreneurs were like, in my mind today, it would be the Elon Musks of the world, right? So it wasn't for everyone.
Correct.
It wasn't an attainable thing for anyone to just go and achieve.
But consulting, I could get my arms around that.
Yeah.
So when they say today, entrepreneurship, it's not for the faint of heart, or it's not easy, or you feel alone, or it kicks up all your stuff. We know all of that. Well, back in the day, I shifted to consulting, thinking, how hard could this be? I just had all the demands of corporate.
Yes.
I can step into consulting. Well, it was hella hard. It was hella hard.
Yeah.
And I found myself having to do everything inside of that entrepreneurship role for myself, making my own living, supporting my own family, things like that, right? Which is why I decided to say yes to everyone.
Correct.
And you said at one point, right, I stopped and pivoted, or as my husband likes to say, stay fluid and lean in.
Love that.
And I stepped away because I had to figure out what mistakes I had made in the consulting business. Number one, by saying yes too many times. Number two, by not serving my clients with the integrity and quality of work that I know I could provide. And that was like my core.
Of course.
So, they say your network is your net worth.
Yes.
Well, my network at that point disintegrated because it was my reputation that went with those clients that I was serving and not serving so well.
Because you said yes to everything, obviously that's going to water down the ability to serve in a really significant capacity. But when you take a look back on that time, what was the mindset shift of understanding? I mean, not living in integrity, that's enough for anybody. So I understand. That's the first layer. But underneath that, where was it in the work you were doing on a daily basis when you noticed this isn't right? I can do better than this. I'm missing the boat. Was it about the work itself, or was it also honoring the fact that there were certain clients that you were not in alignment with that you shouldn't have said yes to just based on the energy and the philosophy that those clients had? Was it a combination of both, or was it more one or the other?
I would say it was a combination, but everything after but is, the real truth. It really leaned into, I was taking on clients I was in alignment with and I understood their businesses, and just too damn many of them.
Yeah. It really was a numbers game.
It really was a numbers game. Yes. And it's not that I wasn't working hard. Oh, I was working really hard.
Yeah.
Like to the tune of 16 and, plus hours a day to try to do it. And I could never catch up. And I was getting, phone calls or whatever the outreach was to me personally. And I felt like I kept getting further, like back into a corner continuously. Not a place I'd recommend going, and really being aware of that, which is why it's really, really important for me. Oh, there's nothing better than being grounded and knowing your strategy and your objectives on a consistent basis. Game changer.
What does being grounded mean for you?
Well, I am a good spreadsheet. Let's go back to that.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other part of being grounded is really having a good strategy inside of your business and what you want to do and accomplish. So asking yourself a lot of questions and stay in your lane. So many of us, it's so easy to get shiny object syndrome, whether we're a product or service, and creating those 3 company strategies or whatever those might look like for the next quarter, year, whatever you want to do as far as a time frame. Let that ground you and stay there. Lean in.
I love that.
It's so hard to do. I mean, we're all business owners. And I think that shiny object syndrome is the hardest thing to say no to. And it's very uncomfortable when you set a strategy and it's right. And then you start having, it's also that fear of missing out, right? Like, but if I stop doing this, am I cutting my business off at the throat, right? Having the courage to just stick to that strategy is really hard.
Well, because shiny object syndrome typically comes from fear. It comes from feeling like I'm not doing enough and I need to quickly go over here and do this thing because that's the magic bullet. When in all actuality, a lot of times we're just chasing something instead of, to your point, sticking to what we know to be true, what the metrics may actually tell us, where our business has come from in the past, and own that, knowing that there's still going to be a season even within that consistency. And that is not pleasant. That doesn't feel great always. Yeah.
Well, and that's what happened in my first round of consulting. If I would get referrals from somebody, of course I would say yes. And of course, and now I'm moving off the mark a little bit, but they were referred to me. So of course I'm going to lean into that. And the values might have been aligned, but was the business really in the same wheelhouse where I was operating? No, but I knew how to do like 80% of it. So I could certainly figure out the rest. And for you, I could figure out the rest. And for you, I could figure out the rest. And now I've got a whole hodgepodge of
figuring out the rest.
Right.
And
while you're trying to figure out what the rest means for you.
Yes. And watching the numbers and making sure those numbers line up.
So
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It was a lot.
What was it, something where you recognized it and realized you had to put a stop to that and then take your break? Or did someone else, was it outside factors that came to you and said, I don't know that this is what you set out to do? Or did you have kind of a breaking moment where you were like, this isn't working?
No, I wish I would have had the breaking moment. I didn't have the breaking moment. At that time, I didn't have mentor, sponsor, whatever role you might call that today, coach, right? Somebody who I could lean on to say, hey, hold up, you might want to take a beat here for a second. No, my work just kept getting less quality of work, and I was disappointing my clients. So imagine that.
Yeah.
You've worked so hard to get these clients, and you've said yes. It doesn't come easy. We all know biz dev is hard.
Yeah.
You've worked really hard, and now they say to you, your disappointment. Oof. How do you not take that personal? And I know I just had a conversation this morning. Don't take business personal. We try so hard to do that. How do you not take that personal?
Exactly.
You do take it personal, even though people will tell you not to. You've put your blood, sweat, and tears into something. When you are a business owner, your reputation is everything, and your reputation is personal. So how do you not take it personal when someone basically throws it into your face that you are not aligned with what their needs are?
It's like credit card debt. I never want to go back to that space again.
No.
Right? I never want to go back to disappointing a client ever, 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 ever. And I never want that to happen to anybody else either. It's so important to me when I'm working with my clients to help them see that before it actually happens to them.
Yeah.
Right? And it happened to me, but truly it happened for me.
You.
I would not be where I was or where I am today.
Yeah.
Had that not happened, thinking about that whole time in my life though, nauseating.
Yeah.
So you took a break.
Yeah.
You took some time off.
Personally, I had to.
Yeah. So talk to us about that. What did you need to go through personally to kind of reset during that time to know you were ready to go again? I
needed to feel like I could be successful at something. I don't care what that was. I needed to show up somewhere. It's like when you have that really challenging day where you feel like, oh my gosh, like I can't seem to get anything done. Like nothing, nothing is being productive. Like I'm sure we all have those days. You're like, what is going on? I cannot get anything done. And I think, oh, I know what I can go do. I can go do a Peloton ride because I know I can get on that bike for 20, 30, or 45 minutes and I can start it and I will finish it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I just need to finish something.
You need to create a win.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's what I needed to do. I needed to create some win to get that momentum and that mojo and that confidence. And
it's critical.
Oh, it was. There were two choices. I could just sit and wallow, or I could figure out where can I redirect and feel like I've got that back.
What do you think it was, personality trait wise, something else that allowed you to get out of the wallow, that said, there is another chapter for me?
Such a good question. I think, part of it is my upbringing, for sure. Like you can say a lot about DNA, and I know there's a whole bunch of messaging out there with your DNA and your who you surround yourself with. And I really feel like part of it was my family and my close friends in that circle. I leaned in and I became vulnerable. And that took a lot for me to do. That took a lot. I am not one to ask for help typically, and realizing, okay, this is a safe space. I need some help now. I needed to ask for that. Yeah.
And you knew there was something else. You knew that this was not it. You knew that there was something else. There was another chapter. There's another season. You surrounded yourself. You leaned into those people around you, which I think is really critical. We hear that a lot.
Community is everything.
Community is everything. And then you said, okay, how did you come to that next season? How did you come to that next chapter? What was it that made you decide this is what I want to do?
You know, when people say to you, oh, you're really good at that, right? So whether it is something you do just naturally, right? Let's say you remember birthdays or celebrations and you really put together fabulous gifting options, or you do something unique, right? You're really good at that. Or you're really good at listening, or you're really good at connecting people or collaborations. That's what it was. I had to keep listening and leaning in. And when people said, like, when I feel like people naturally just tell me the story of their life, like I will meet a stranger and they'll just start talking to me as if I've known them for some time. Yeah. You know, that's a really good feeling. And people are like, oh, I'm not surprised they did that. That's where you start to lean. You've got to listen to what others are saying about like reflection on who you are and your natural talents.
Yeah, they're clues.
Very big clues. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you were going through that, did you seek that out? Did you say, team, here's where I'm at. I'm at a crossroads. I really need to contemplate my next steps. Can I implore you to share with me what you think my strengths are? Or were you picking up on the subtle clues that were happening with you?
Actually, no, I didn't do either
I
in
love
the beginning. This is this is how I'm wired. Again, ask for help. And then I backed off.
Yeah.
And I was on a vacation and I identified there were going to be 3 days where it was just going to be me solo. And I said, okay, calendar.
Yep.
I have 3 days to figure out what I'm doing with my life. Like I have 3 days. Day 1. Nothing. I'm like, okay,
Crickets.
well, there's 48 hours left. So let's hop to it. I literally had a business coach. I called her. I'm like, hey, nothing's happening. So I have a day and a half left. Nothing's happening. She's like, okay, well, let's have some prompts and write out some things. I'm like, I'm writing. Oh no, I'm writing. I'm reading. I'm listening. I'm doing all the things. Still nothing happening. Yeah.
There was no epiphany.
No. Drove me crazy.
I was just going to say that
like,
I feel the anxiety listening to it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dreams don't have deadlines. You're like, but it does. Actually, I need to shore this up right now.
Meditation, pushing it up to the universe. I'm like handing it up. Right. I'm waiting for it to come down. I'm
looking
like,
for the sign. Like, what is it going to be?
Yeah, putting myself in different environments, going to the park, going for a walk, going to the coffee shop, you name it. I was there. Art. Oh, let's go to a museum. Inspire me, inspire me, inspire me. Zilch.
No.
Zilch. So then I was explaining that and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And then I had a couple girls show up at the tail and they're like, have you thought about X? Have you thought about leaning into consulting? And, you have a tendency to do Y all the time. And I thought, oh, yeah, that's cute. That was my first response. Yeah. Oh, that's cute. That doesn't sound very successful. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I can't even imagine what the numbers look like for something like that. Again, back to the numbers.
Right. Right. And you were making excuses. I think that sometimes when we have strategies or when we have passions or interests and we're afraid of them, we're afraid of, can I do it?
For sure.
What does that look like? Will people trust me for that? Will they respect me for that? Like this fear of this imposter syndrome, we then start making excuses for why it won't work.
And I also think that sometimes when it's so simple, when we've been through something that's core rattling, devastating, you sit back and feel like the reward to that is this huge epiphany. It's supposed to be this monumental thing that falls from the sky. And you're like, that's why I went through this for this moment. And then you realize it's actually so simple. It is so simple to who we intrinsically are, what we are intrinsically good at. And I think there's a part of high achievers that is the piece that we have to deal with, which is it actually doesn't need to have trumpets and a full coronation. And it is just as simple as who we are and figuring that part of it out. But we want the fanfare of the big moment, right? Which is like, I'm ready for it. Well, how about consulting? You're like, yeah.
But if you want to show up as a cheerleader and you want to bring your French horn, Sign me up.
Okay.
I am
Done.
game
for a year.
both of you.
I won't land on my head this time for the
I
backhand
would appreciate
swing.
that.
Yeah,
We're
totally.
there.
That
We
gives
will-
me anxiety.
We're there. We are your band and your cheerleading platform. We will absolutely
Exactly. I'll
raise
sing
you
a
up
couple
on that.
songs. We'll have a concert. It'll be great.
So now you're doing what do you feel like you're doing what you're meant to be doing?
Oh my gosh, I love every day. I had the best client call this morning. Her business is headed towards over 150% growth.
Wow.
A number. But she's doing it in a very systematic, grounded approach, which feels so juicy to me. Like there's no better word. Like it just feels so good because there's not anxiety with it and we have very full conversations about it. So yes, I love what I'm doing now, but it's interesting as I reflect when I first started in this space and as you gave my bio, I feel like I was like, oh, try this. Oh, try this. Oh, go to this. Right. And I think I take that personally. I think, oh, you know, even my friends or family surrounding me, it's one of those, oh, what's she doing now? Right? I mean, as we try to experiment with new paths or careers, I personally would always, past me, worry about, and it's probably not completely gone, what is everybody going to think?
Right.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a
So-
human response.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, she left that and now she's doing consulting. And then she had a handbag company and now she's back to consulting. You feel like, yeah, that's
But
right.
you know what? I'm going to challenge this right now because I've had similar experiences where I've tried a lot of different things. You know, I've moved companies when I was in corporate. I was moving companies, which was totally against how I was brought up, where my dad was loyal to his company until they forced him to retire and gave him, you know, a early, retirement and all that. So that's what I saw growing up is that was how you were successful. So to move around a lot felt like that wasn't what you were committing, right? You weren't being loyal. But to me, when I look back, because multiple jobs in different corporations, I started a stationery business when the boys were young. I did this, you know, then going back to corporate America. And then when I switched to get my real estate license, like I struggled with, and even my husband was like, so you're going to leave a 6-figure corporate C-suite position to get your real estate license, where you barely need a high school education for. And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, okay. I was like, but I'm going to do it different. I feel like for high achievers, people that are passionate about, it's almost like a Renaissance mindset, how much we learned from each of those experiences, that those who do stick with one thing, I'm not saying it's bad, won't get this kind of exposure to different ways to run a business, different ways to fail, different ways to a perspective of business, a perspective of how to care for clients, a perspective of what's important. So I think I would applaud that you have that in you to have the courage to try different things, because it's made you much better as a consultant now to those who may not have that perspective, to know like, okay, you're not seeing it from this angle or that angle, but I've been there. So let me explain to you some different ways to think about it, or maybe let's think outside of the box. So I think because you've had those experiences, and I would almost encourage people, it's better to get lots of different experiences in life. Doesn't mean you have to change careers, but to get involved, to volunteer, to whatever it is, you need to experience life in different ways to appreciate what you currently have, and then to be able to provide that advice and consulting.
I couldn't agree more. I also think the minute we start apologizing for our intrinsic nature, we've missed the point. And there's a reason that you have followed your voice to try different things, because you're open enough to know when it no longer serves you. And with great risk comes great reward. So people who are staying the course and never deviating from that, I do applaud that. That's not my nature. I mean, deep down, I'd love to be that person that could say, I was with this company for 40 years, like our folks did. But I look at it as, what season is that calling me into? And what is that? What do I need to, who do I need to become in order to sustain that? And when we start to have the grass grow under our feet, there is a feeling of it's time to do something new, whether that's a new job or not. To your point, it may not be that.
Yeah.
But life is rich with its experiences, and we can't just do that if we have tunnel vision on one thing. We have to be open to what that means in order to embrace all of it. The empathy piece is key. How can you consult multiple different kinds of business owners if you yourself haven't tried them on for size? It gives you such great perspective. Here's to not apologizing for that.
No,
we're not flaky. It's not flaky. There's a connotation, but it's old.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the generation after us, they don't think that way. They actually embrace it. They're all about, I am where I am today, and if I need to move tomorrow, that's fine. It's our generation that really has felt that post-boomer.
Because we're seeing both sides of it. We've come from a generation that was consistent and loyal and stuck with things, to seeing the other side in that generation, the younger generation, where it's almost like, to me, a little too much. Like, let's stick with it a little bit longer. Like, you got to try, like, just give it a little bit more time, to where there's that happy medium. But no, I think I'm excited for your clients. I'm excited that they get to, have the benefit of your experiences. And it looks just from your face like you can tell you love what you do and you feel fulfilled in that. And a question I have for you is, if you could go back in time, is there a point in time, or what would you say to yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
Why didn't you start sooner? If you're nervous about stepping into something on a stage, in a new business, exploring a new product, coming up with an idea or a concept, if you're like a little bit nervous, you're in the exact right space. Like, do it, right? That's the good stuff. I would have started this sooner, but I was a little apprehensive. I had the corporate background. Mm-hmm. I was conservative. I was breadwinner for a while, right? Mm-hmm. So I had that. And that's real. That's real. You can't take a lot of risks sometimes, or you can. You just have to know what your responsibilities are. You have to be honest with yourself, right? We can't kid ourselves. But it's really interesting to look back, and to your point, staying in integrity with yourself. I can't imagine not doing what I'm doing today, right now. And sometimes you have to just say, who cares what everybody else thinks?
Yeah.
Right?
Stop overthinking it.
Yes. Yeah. That happens quite frequently.
Yeah. Sure it does.
It still does today. I'd be lying if I say I don't overthink things sometimes. Of course I do.
Yeah.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Who's your ideal client?
My ideal client. So right now I've got a whole portfolio of them, right? So it's a luxury, absolutely. And it is a service or product-based client who shows up ready to engage, who shows up ready to step into what looks like their next level, right? That's really big, that they want to lean in and they want to continue learning as they're leading their company. So that, I would say, that's my ideal client. I have some clients that we meet on a weekly basis, and they show up ready to discuss the top 3 things that are going on. And I mean, I am so ready for them. That happened to me today, and it was just a brilliant conversation.
Love that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define success?
Yes, this question is a great question. I don't want to lean into just numbers because, look where that got me, right? And you can't ignore it, because if you don't know your numbers, you truly don't have a business. You're
Correct.
just a tourist in your business if you don't really have a sense of your financials. So don't be afraid of them. We try to make them fun and do all the things. Colored spreadsheets are just as equally good as black and white. So if you want to add some colors and some highlights, I encourage that. So success partly is, of course, knowing your numbers. The other part is you've got to feel it within, because that's how you're going to show up. And that's how you're going to move the needle forward in your business. So you have to feel that. And it is a feeling. It is a feeling. It is that heart-head connection to feel that. And that feels really good. I show up differently in conversations with my family. I show up differently in conversations with my colleagues and my network. I show up and feel like I can voice my opinion, and voice is big. I know that's one of your tenets.
Absolutely.
So I show up that it's okay for me to have that opinion. It's okay that we can disagree on that opinion. It's okay to listen and learn. I am a lifelong learner, which feels like a constant entrepreneurship mentality. Nothing can ever get stale if you're learning. And technology, that's all I need to say. And that's learning every day, all the time.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
For sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning, we believe that leaders are readers. And we also believe that leaders are digesting content in some capacity, whether it's podcasts, whether it's going to personal development workshops, seminars, whatever that looks like. What is on your bookshelf? What's in your rotation that feeds you and has really supported you in your growth?
Well, I do keep a list in my Goodreads. I use Goodreads, the app, as a technology. And there are books I read or listen to. It just depends every year. Right. Repetitive. Because for me, repetition, that's really when it soaks in for me. Yeah. So a one and done isn't always the best for me. I mean, I do get a little bit of that, but from a reading standpoint, Atomic Habits, I read it every year. I subscribe to his newsletter.
Yes.
So it's a nice thing to have, because I'll read something and I'll think, oh, fascinating. I read this book and I don't remember that part.
Right.
The 4 Agreements.
Absolutely.
The 4 Agreements is delightful. I read that every year, actually. Lots of notes in that book. I actually have the hardcover for that. And so those are 2 books that end up on my list pretty much every year. I know I've got a few others that are, but those 2 are prominent.
Have you read the other Don Miguel Ruiz?
The 5th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mastery of Love. It's
okay. I have a new book. I haven't heard of this one.
You will
Those
love
2.
4 Agreements. It was a game changer for me. Yeah. And it's not a long read.
Oh, good. Even better.
No, it's not full of wisdom.
Oh, good,
I think it packs a punch.
Oh, I'm excited about that one.
You'll love it.
And it's good to put something like that into practice, because that becomes part of your personal and business culture and mentality and things like that. I really like that. Yeah.
This has been such a great morning. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited for our listeners to hear what you have to say. And where can they find you? Where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more?
I try to make it really easy. Carlyn Bushman Consulting.com. CarlynBushman.com. It leads to the same website. Social, Carlyn Bushman Consulting. LinkedIn, the same. I don't try to complicate anything.
Perfect.
Yep.
Good. Keep it simple.
I respect that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Our new Keep It Simple, sweetheart.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yes, you're welcome. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your wisdom. And thank you for joining us today.
And we hope this is the first of many times that you can join us in this space.
I would love that.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
would too. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. If you loved this episode and know of someone who would find value in it, please spread the word and share it with a friend. We are passionate about redefining success, and it would mean the world if you could help us get our mission out to as many people as possible. Please take a minute to write a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. You can also hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Connect with us on Instagram at Success Resequencing Project or via our website at www.successresequencing.com. We'd love to hear your story.